Imagine it's a lovely Sunday afternoon, you are enjoying a ride on your favorite country road when all of a sudden...
Oh damn, what's going on? What is this noise?
You freak out a little bit or even get a little dizzy. You start thinking that your bike is making some weird noise, you turn off the bike completely, but the ringing is still there and you still hear everything a bit muffled. You ask yourself, why am I hearing so weird? Unfortunately, it is not your bike making these sounds. It is your hearing cells inside your ears that are dying. You might not have known this, but years of riding without proper hearing protection have accumulated to the point where you are experiencing serious hearing loss. Yes, you are right. In this video, I will be talking about hearing loss associated with motorcycle riding. Even though I already made a similar video about this issue a while ago, I decided to make a bit more detailed one because quite some people reached out to me and told me about their struggles with this issue and how they found out while it was already too late for them. So I am simply trying to spread awareness on this topic because I also experienced a certain degree of hearing loss in my early 20s and know firsthand what it's like. Now, my hearing loss mostly came from me being an unaware fool in the first row of concerts and listening to loud music on headphones. Which, by the way, is the worst thing you can do for your hearing, especially using those in-ear headphones. Those are the absolute worst. On top of that, I spent years working as a sound engineer in a studio exposed to loud sounds for pretty much the whole day and never gave a second thought about protecting my hearing a bit more. Of course, I was young and hearing loss is something only old people experience. Right? Unfortunately, that is not the case and we have to be cautious at all times. Luckily for me, I got to my senses when a slight ringing in my ears first appeared and I have been protecting my ears at all costs ever since. While the ringing is now down to a minimum, there is some subtle hearing loss at the higher frequencies, but not really noticeable enough to prevent me from working or having a normal life. But some people are not that lucky. First, it's time for a short anatomy lesson so you will get a better understanding of what is happening in your ears when exposed to loud sounds. Deep in our inner ear lies the cochlea, a spiral-shaped organ filled with thousands of tiny hair-like cells called stereocilia. These cells are very important. They convert sound vibrations into electrical signals that your brain later interprets as sound. But when the volume is cranked up, whether it's through headphones, a concert, or in our case a loud motorcycle, these hair cells are pushed to their limits. Loud noises cause these cells to vibrate excessively, leading to bending, breaking, or even death of these very delicate structures. And here's the catch. They don't regenerate at all. Once damaged, they're gone forever. And ever. I mean, really forever. So what's the result of all this? Permanent hearing loss and possibly tinnitus, which is a constant ringing in the ears. And the longer you ignore this issue, the worse it gets until you are eventually completely deaf. So how exactly does hearing loss occur from motorcycle riding? Most modern motorcycles with stock exhaust systems and moderate riding produce a noise of around 90 dB, that is decibels. But it all really depends on how exactly they are ridden. There is obviously a big difference when you ride at 4000 RPM compared to 12,000 RPM. Studies and research have shown that exposure at 90 dB is relatively safe for about 2 hours, but keep in mind that the 90 dB figure for motorcycle loudness is taken from very moderate riding between 4 and 5,500 RPM. Personally, I ride quite higher in the RPM range, where the noise is significantly higher, and at higher RPMs, most motorcycles exceed the loudness of 100 decibel. The 10 decibel difference between 90 and 100 dB might not seem like that big of a deal, but please be aware that the safe exposure time is halved just every additional 3 decibel. So if safe exposure time for 90 dB is 2 hours, 93 dB is 1 hour, 96 dB is 30 minutes, and 99 dB is around 50 minutes. So with decibel levels of over 100, you start to cause hearing damage pretty much immediately after sitting on the bike. Now please also be aware that this is if you have a more modern bike with a stock exhaust, which tends to be much more quiet than older bikes and bikes fitted with aftermarket exhausts. Most bikes with aftermarket exhaust systems produce dB levels of well over 100 dB just with moderate riding alone, and in the higher RPMs they become completely deafening to the rider and even those around them. As if the loud engine and exhaust sound were not loud enough yet, there is also another factor that is even more likely to damage your hearing, and that is wind noise. If you're just cruising at lower speeds, you might not even notice that much wind, but once we start riding above 100 km per hour, and especially on the highway where the speeds can be very high, the wind literally becomes the loudest thing we hear. If you're like me and ride a naked bike with a stock exhaust, you know that the sound of wind can completely mask the exhaust and engine sound on the highway. So now we have two extremely loud sources directly damaging our ears while we ride for hours, sometimes even the whole day. Right now you might be thinking, but I have been riding like this for so long and experienced nothing. Yeah, exactly. You experienced nothing yet. There is a reason why all the top MotoGP and Formula 1 drivers are using hearing protection always and no matter what. This is the kind of damage that really just slowly accumulates, and most people find out about it when it is already too late for them. If you get lucky, you might get a warning sign of slight ringing from time to time, and if you are smart enough, you listen to that warning and start to wear hearing protection. Sure, if you ride only a couple of times per year, you will most likely get away with no damage or risk whatsoever, even with a really loud bike, but if you ride often or even daily, you are at a very high risk because the damage actually has time to accumulate, and your ears do not get enough time to rest when the little hearing cells in our ears have been abused to their limits. It is pretty similar to getting a microfracture in your leg, and then playing football with that leg instead of letting it heal. Eventually the bone in your leg will shatter and you will be forced to rest and let it heal properly, which is unfortunately not possible with those hearing cells. So please take care of your hearing. Which brings me over to the next point. How can we as motorcycle riders effectively protect our hearing? Yes, I know what you might think right now. You are already wearing a helmet which protects you from some noise, but the truth is that most helmets protect you against hearing loss just like a pair of jeans protects you in a motorcycle crash. It pretty much does nothing. What will truly protect us is the use of earplugs. Most of the earplugs will do just fine, but I would definitely avoid those made out of foam because they do not really protect you from very loud sounds effectively. Mostly they leave you with muffled hearing and tend to fit in most ears very poorly, and in some cases they even fall out of your ears. Not ideal while you are riding. There are some dedicated motorcycle earplugs that you can buy, but really any silicone-based earplugs that completely fill your ears will do just fine and won't break the bank for you. Personally, I use a pair of silicone earplugs that are meant for concerts, and I also use a second pair of earplugs that offer a bit more noise reduction if I plan to do a longer trip, especially if I plan to do a lot of highway driving. Don't worry, most quality earplugs don't completely prevent you from hearing what is going on around you. You will hear most of the things like the traffic around you just fine, only at a much lower and safer noise level with a significant reduction of those annoying high frequencies that damage our hearing the most. This will turn a motorcycle ride into a much more relaxed and, let's say, civilized experience. Perhaps you don't want to use earplugs and want the completely unfiltered experience of riding a motorcycle and hear the exhaust sound completely, which is understandable because the sound is a big part of what makes riding a bike fun. But let me assure you that earplugs take only a few hours to get used to, and you will most likely forget you have them in your ears over time. After that, you will get used to them to the point where it will just feel wrong and overwhelmingly loud to ride without them, and when you will forget to pop them in just once, you will quickly realize how loud your bike actually is and how much more pleasant it is to ride with them. So basically something that would sound like this turns into something more like this. See? That's much more civilized. Bear in mind that using earplugs won't only protect your hearing, but it will also make you a better, more focused rider. When you have a constant noise level of at least 90 dB around you, it tends to put a lot of stress on your brain, because that's how the brain perceives sound, as a stressor. So the louder your environment, the less you are able to focus on what you are doing. Pretty much the same reason why we have to keep quiet in a library. I remember when I wasn't using earplugs at the beginning, even a short ride felt somewhat exhausting because there was just so much outside input for my brain to process. It is the same when comparing a walk through a crowded city to a walk in an empty forest. That walk through the forest sure feels much more relaxing. So there you have it. There are many benefits of riding with earplugs and really no downsides, so please truly consider protecting your hearing if you're not doing so already. There are pages and pages of desperate people on forums and YouTube comments trying to fix this issue with no success, and eventually they will have to learn to live with it. Make sure you don't become one of them. Be aware of how fortunate you are to still have your hearing intact and protect it no matter what, because those small hearing cells never grow back. They really don't. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it for you. Stay safe, take care of your hearing, and see you in the next one. Also a shout out to one of my very cool followers who left this absolutely amazing comment under the last video I made about hearing loss. I just thought you guys would like to see this. It's really like a piece of art, this comment. He probably took quite a while to write this, so I think it deserves like a shout out. So thank you. Well, unless you used ChatGPT to write it, then I take all of it back. And yeah. Anyway, that's it. Bye bye.